Okay, we are going to be covering chapter 6 today, and somehow I messed this up. There it goes. Okay, let's get this going, maybe. There we go. Okay, we're going to be talking about network security devices, design, and technology. Okay, some of this I can guarantee you guys are familiar with. Some of it maybe not. Okay. All right, it says security can be achieved through using the security features found in standard network devices. We all have routers at home? Yes? Everybody have a router at home? Okay, I bought a new type of router called Eero, E-E-R-O. Anyone ever heard of Eero? No one heard of Eero? Maybe? Yes?
No.
Here's what it is. It's Eero. You can probably see a picture of it here somewhere. This is what I got right here. The reason is I had an Apple Airport Extreme and I loved it, but they're no longer being updated. They're not going to release any new ones. So I converted my network over to Eero, and I can honestly say it was super easy to do. Oh my God, easy. But there's really a cool feature built into it. I was on a cruise, 2 weeks ago, I guess, and my wife's oldest daughter was watching my mother-in-law, and I got pissed off at her. So remotely from a cruise ship, I was able to get into the home router and block her cell phone from my home network, because she has a phone with no service. It's just Wi-Fi only. So I was remotely able to go in there very easily with a click of my finger, block her from my network. My wife said it was like a nuclear explosion in the house because you hear her screaming that someone cut her network off. But really super easy to do, and kind of impressed with it so far. Really not having any issues with it. Okay, but we all have some sort of, like it says, network device. You might not know what it really is or how it works, but we all have some. Okay. Says, basically, we're going to talk about all these different kinds of devices. They start talking about the OSI model. I'm assuming we've heard of that. We've all had networking at one point or another. Maybe some of you. Yes. If not, you're going to take it at one point. Well, the OSI model is 7 layers. Then they start talking about different devices, bridges and switches and routers and hubs, and we're going to be talking about all this stuff you see on the bottom here. Bridges, switches, routers, load balancers, proxies, all those different things. And IDS is stuff today. So, all right. Bridges are the first thing. This is a hardware device that really connects, okay? You really have bridges and routers, okay? We don't see bridges anymore. They're pretty much gone. Years ago, they were very popular. They're called what's called a layer 2 device. If you think of a bridge, like what does the bridge over the Red River do? It connects, Oklahoma to Texas. It connects 2 areas together. Not necessarily have to be different states or anything, but you always have bridges over water to connect them together. Well, bridges were used a lot to connect networks together, okay? Not seen a lot anymore. We really just have routers now and switches, because switches can take over for that. It says can connect 2 local area networks or 2 different network segments, okay? Did anyone remember when hubs were popular? Anyone remember a hub? But none of you even seen a hub, have you?
Those used a lot for like internet services and stuff, like Proxy.
Yes. Well, they used to be. Way back when, we all had hubs, and then they came out with switches, and now everything's a switch nowadays. And what was it about? I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I needed a hub, because let me tell you the difference between a hub and a switch. A hub is like an extension cord. Whatever's plugged into goes out all ports. So if you have 4 or 5 computers all connected via hub, all 4 or 5 all get the traffic to everybody. A switch segments it. So if you send things on one cable, it only goes out to the other cable it needs to. It doesn't go to all of them. Well, I needed a hub so I could capture the traffic on all ports. But I even went to Walmart and bought one. I was way across town. And they said it was a hub, and it was a switch. So yeah, we have a hub upstairs, a really super old one, but they're very hard to find nowadays. Okay, bridges is connect 2 networks together, operate at layer 2, just not popular anymore. Inside of Windows, you can actually go in like it's showing here and bridge your connections together. You'll see they're actually going to bridge two networks together. Okay. In my office over there, I have two network cards in my machine. I could bridge them together. That would mean both network cards would then function on the same network. Okay. It's not done very frequently, but you could do it. Okay. Switches, that's what we have today. Okay. The device that connects networks intelligently. Okay. So if you have a router at home, say you got a Linksys router, it has a switch built into it. If you buy a switch, you know, obviously that is a switch, but a switch allows you to connect multiple devices. We have a cable right here on the wall behind me that this computer connects to. This cable runs up through the ceiling to upstairs in room 207, where there's a whole bunch of switches on the wall. If you ever want to see what one looks like, it's a glass door. Go up to room 207, look in the door. You'll see tons of lights and tons of cables. That's where all the switches are for this building. So it's kind of cool to see. It can learn devices that are connected to each port. So whenever you plug a new device in, the switch registers you on the switch. And then whenever there's traffic, if it's destined for you, it only goes straight to you. So say I'm connected on, let's get a picture of a switch here. You can see what I'm talking about here. So we're just going to get a switch. Yeah. Should have known better. Network switch. Okay. So they come in many sizes and shapes and quantities of ports, but we'll go with this one here. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay. So in this switch here, it's a 5-port switch. So say we have 5 different devices plugged in, one in each port. Okay. Then whatever's plugged into port 1, if it wants to talk to whatever's plugged into port 2, it would go directly from port 1 to port 2, and that's it. So port 1 and 2 can talk back and forth at the same time. 3 and 4 can talk back and forth. Basically, the traffic is not duplicated amongst ports, and it's a lot faster this way. Much, much faster. Now, there's one thing they don't mention on here. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it before class, but every switch that I'm aware of, what happens is every time you plug something in, just like it said on the second bullet, can learn which device is connected to each port. So every time you plug something in, it's learning what's plugged in. Well, they say that pretty much all switches out there can only handle, I think it's 4,000 addresses. Okay. What it is, they built a table of devices connected. They can only handle up to 4,000. What do you think happens when they go over 4,000? It basically fails open. So the moment they get more than 4,000, all of a sudden all traffic is sent to everybody. So it's a vulnerability in all switches that we're aware of. I just couldn't find anything on it today before class, but it's kind of scary because you can actually go into your computer with special software and make it pretend it's multiple different computers. So if you can make your computer pretend it's 4,000 different computers, it would cause the switch to fail open because this routing table would be full, then everything is duplicated on all ports. So it is a big vulnerability, but you do have to have physical access to the switch to do it. It says it examines the MAC address of the frames it receives on each port and sends it off to the particular port. It stores them in this MAC address table, like it says there. It forwards frames onto the intended device rather than to everybody. Like I said, if it came on port 1, going to port 2, that's the only ones to see it. That's called unicast. If it went to everybody, that would be a broadcast. Okay. So it's important for switches to be properly configured to provide a high level of security. And some switches do support port mirroring, where you could see what's on the ports, but that has to be set up separately. The bottom, it says proper configuration includes loop prevention and provides with flood guard. That thing I was telling you about, so many addresses. So here's an example. So we have 3 different switches, 3 different network, segments there. And there's something called actually I don't even mention 543 anymore in here, but so alpha would connect through switch A to switch B, and then it would be on the network for beta and so on and so forth. Just to kind of a weird example there, okay? And what do you think would happen with this configuration right now? Do you see a problem here? Okay, a switch does not handle routing, okay? Well, but then we don't need internet access. But you see segment 3 between switch A and C? Theoretically, the traffic from beta could hit switch C. Switch C could forward it to switch A. And that same traffic could go from beta to switch B and B to A, so you could duplicate traffic. I took care of St. Philip School up here years ago. And when we first took it over, there was no diagrams whatsoever. So I actually had students, we went in there, we mapped out the entire school, where every cable went. There was this one cable we could not figure out where it went for nothing. And I'll tell you, the network worked, but it was slow. Okay, we had what was called a broadcast storm, because we could see there was some duplicate traffic on the network. So what we ended up doing was that one cable, we didn't know where it went, we unplugged it. Guess what happened? Oh my God, the network got so much faster. We had this kind of configuration. We had kind of a loop in the network. We still don't know exactly where that other cable went, but we just unhooked it one day, and the network started working perfectly, so we just stuffed it up in the ceiling. Got done with it. So, yeah, you want to make sure you don't have a loop in your network. It's a really, really bad thing. Not good at all. Okay, so this flood guard, a threat agent may attempt a MAC address flood, like I was telling you about, by overflowing the switch with Ethernet frames that have been spoofed, so that each frame contains a different address, just like I was saying. The defense against this is flood guard or port security. It says switches to support port security can be configured to limit the number of MAC addresses on a particular port. Because if you get too many, your switch could actually fail open and just start throwing stuff everywhere. Okay, you're not going to find something like flood guard on your Linksys routers. This is going to be the manageable, the more expensive switches. Okay, yeah, if you're paying $100 for a switch, it doesn't support this. Trust me. Okay, now routers are layer 3. Says forwards packets between different networks. So at your home, you might wonder, why the heck do you have a router at home if you only have one network? Well, your home network is connected to your ISP's network, so it's technically 2 different networks. Okay, operates at layer 3. Can use what's called ACL, access control lists, and we're going to talk more about that when we get to firewalls. But you can do some configuration on your routers to block. Like I said, I blocked my stepdaughter from the network. I just told the router to block her, and it basically put an entry in the system. Hey, this MAC address is no longer allowed on the network. Okay. So it can also be used to limit traffic enter the network. It can also function as load balancing. Okay. A prime example of load balancing is Amazon and Netflix. Trust me, if they didn't have load balancing work, we wouldn't be able to stream videos or anything. Okay. Can allocate requests amongst multiple devices, making so your network just works better. It says load balancers help evenly distribute work across the network, and it says allocates requests among multiple devices. Okay. These are on I don't even think we have a load balancer here on campus because our network's not big enough for that. Okay. Advantages: reduces probability of overflowing and optimize bandwidth. And you need a pretty large network for something like that. Okay. Hardware and software can handle load balancing. There's 2 different ways to do it. You have layer 4 and layer 7. They could do it based on applications layers. They could do it based on protocol. They could do it on all different kind of things. Now, I tried to get an example of Roundrobin today, but it didn't work. Let's see. I don't know why I can't see it anymore. Yeah, see, it sucks.
Use ping instead of
No, but hold on. I should still be able to see a different address there. Oh, it is. It's changing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, see that bottom address? Last digit is 132. Then it goes to 68. Well, it was on 68.
The third segment is changing from 1 to 6.
Okay, so it is changing. It used to be we were giving you a list. Okay. I don't know why it's not giving me a list anymore. They must have changed something recently. But Roundrobin is like, can you imagine how many people hit Google? It's got to be a lot. Can you imagine if everybody hit one computer? It'd be dead. Okay. And did I already ask you guys the question about Google's hardware? I don't know if I ever did. What kind of hardware do you think they buy? Cheap or expensive? Cheap. Absolutely cheapest hardware available. Because their system, they wrote their own operating system, and it's set up to the point where failover is so perfect, basically, that they expect stuff to crash. So they buy super cheap components. And there's a book called In the Flesh, which tells you all about it. And it's like, wow, I don't know, it's pretty amazing. But Roundrobin, Google has a block of addresses to point to their system. And every time someone asks to go to Google, it gives out a different address. So it kind of rotates them through. Okay? All right. That's a good way of load balance. Proxy servers. Bunch of different proxy servers. Okay, first one says forward proxy, a computer application program that intercepts requests from the internal network and processes requests. Okay, years ago, man, this is probably, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. I used to take care of a company called Taylor Valve Technologies. They're out on Council and 74th. They sell valves and stuff and special stuff for oil wells, all specialty stuff. Back then, the only cheap, usable way to get on the internet was through a 56K modem. Now, some of you have never seen a 56K modem. But their entire organization was connected to the internet through one modem. So you can imagine how slow this could be. But again, we didn't have YouTube, and we didn't have, Facebook or any of that stuff. So really all they used it for was a couple basic searches, but mainly tracking, shipping, and stuff like that. Well, what we had was we had one computer set up with a modem connected to it and a proxy server on it. And everybody in the organization, whenever they wanted to search for something, it obviously went through the network to that proxy server. Then the proxy server would take all the requests and go out and get the information. And back then, most web pages were static, which means they didn't change. Okay, like now, what now?
No JavaScript.
Right, no JavaScript. So if you brought up MSN.com or whatever back, actually Google wasn't even around back then. Say you brought up MSN.com. Well, the page was going to be the same. I don't care who loaded it. So what would happen is the proxy server would go out to MSN.com, load the page, and store its contents in its memory. So the next person that went to MSN.com, it didn't have to go out and get it. It would just, give it from memory. So it basically stores and gets the request on your behalf. And, it just saves a lot of internet, okay? They're still used somewhat today. Rostate still uses some, okay? Rostate blocks outgoing ports. Well, for a while back, I needed access to a specific different port. So they set it up in Rostate's proxy system. It basically said, to get to this port, I would go through the proxy. So I would ask the machine for the information. It would go out and get it on my behalf and then return it to me. Okay? So it's most of the time you won't even realize it's happening. You can use it as a content filter as well. So stuff like that. The next one, application or multi-purpose proxy. This is where the proxy, it does the applications for you. It can actually know what you're doing. It says a special proxy service to know the applications and the protocols that support. It can actually check the traffic, make sure it's legitimate, make sure it's not been manipulated in any way. Reverse says routes requests coming from an external to an internal source. So think of it like it backwards. So someone from the outside world is trying to connect into here. And transparent, here's why I added a little bit to it. It does not require any configuration. It does not modify the request, but can act as a content filter. So basically, think of the transparent proxy as all the traffic leaving Rostate's going through the proxy. It does nothing to the traffic. It receives a request, goes out and gets it, gets the results, and gives it back to where who wanted it. But you can limit stuff in there. You can act as a content filter. I was teaching up Meridian Technology up in Stillwater a few years back. I was teaching a computer hardware class. It was funny. We were in there teaching at night. and it was in a school district. It's like a VOTEC. Someone searched for something that alerted the content filter. So basically what it did is it immediately cut our entire room off the internet, and then security came down to see what we were doing in the room. So it can be, you know, I don't know what they were searching, you know, but I mean, can you imagine like having something like that here at Rose State? I mean, we had a health part, whatever, you know, health sciences area, so we really couldn't block anything, you know, human body-wise, but whatever they served, it set it off. So it can limit based on content, it can limit based on who knows what. It can limit based on application, it can limit based on whatever it wanted to do. Okay. And here is pictures showing forward and reverse. You know, here's the source. Asking for a web page, it goes to the proxy. The proxy replaces the source with itself because that's when it gets the information and brings it back. It cuts down traffic is what it does. It's really what a proxy does. Okay, advantage, increased speed, reduced cost. Nowadays, I mean, are you limited on the amount of data you can use at your house? What do you think? Who has Cox? Anybody? Did you know you are limited?
We pay for unlimited.
You pay the extra $39 a month? So do I. Okay.
Well, my dad works for Cox. We get the rest of our service for free.
Okay. Well, with Cox, you're limited to
Terabyte.
a terabyte of data with your service for a month. And above that, it starts charging you. So I pay the extra 34, whatever it is, to get truly unlimited. Because I have like 9 security cameras in my house. So the moment I started paying for that, I upped all my cameras to super HD quality. I'm going to just beat the heck out of them. I might as well. Okay. So a proxy can reduce traffic because it would cache information. Okay. All right. So increase speed, reduce cost, improve management, stronger security. Okay. I use something at home called OpenDNS. Anyone ever heard of OpenDNS?
Heard of.
OpenDNS, right? Is that it? That's not it. There it is. Okay. OpenDNS. It's actually free. You can sign up for free. I have OpenDNS set up. What that does is a lot of times if there's viruses, malware, or something that's trying to redirect your computer to a malicious site, this would know about it and would block that site. You can also tell it, maybe you got children, so you want to block all pornography sites, maybe you want to block all social media sites. So you can configure this to do certain things. I want no games allowed. I don't know if you can go down as low as games. I know you can block social media. You can block adult sites. You can block all kind of malicious sites. I mean, anything to do with the viruses and malware. It's kind of a cool feature, and it's free, so you can look into something like that. Okay. All right, and it's not really a proxy server, but it's something close. Okay, now let's talk about different types of hardware. The first one they start talking about is a firewall. Firewalls are very critical. They come with our home routers. Okay, they're kind of a no frills, because I'm assuming no one here has ever configured their firewall at home. They probably just plugged in your router and it works, okay, which is what's good. But what if you wanted to do something else? Okay, I used to take care of a bunch of gyms called Anytime Fitness. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're around the city. I took care of all the gyms from here to Lawton to Mustang to all over the place. And it was funny because I signed up for their service initially to go to a gym. And I wanted, I signed up for everything. I said, I want your whole package. I want free personal training. I want everything. Well, then shortly after that, I don't know, we had something set up. And I don't know, it was a personal training. We had something set up with the gym. And they reneged on it. There was a guy who didn't show up. And so I complained like I always do. And I complained from here at Rose State, from my Rose address. And I got a call from the gym owner. The owner of all these locations said, hey, I would like to talk to you. So I said, okay. So I go to see him. And first thing he does is he gives me my check back of every bit of money I paid him, all like $3,600 for an entire year of everything. He's like, I'm giving you a free membership. I would like you to handle some consulting on my gyms, on the networks. I'm like, okay. And I said, what do you do? Because we have nothing. So great. But it was kind of cool. I had free access to everything, and I just looked at the gyms. So we made an appointment, and we started going around looking at all the gyms. And it was funny. I'm like, so, do you have like a password on your Wi-Fi? No, we don't need that. I'm like, why? We don't need that. So we're going, and we get to the gym in Mustang, okay? Right off of Mustang Road, there's Anytime Fitness there.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I'm going into, because each place had their own manager.
Yeah.
So I'm with the owner, but we're going out to talk to the individual manager. So I'm like, okay, so what do you guys, why do you have wireless? Well, because we have a computer for a personal trader over there and it connects to your wireless. So that's all on? Yeah, it's the only thing we got on the wireless. So I bring it up, their system. They got PS3s, they got all this stuff connected to their wireless. I'm like, what are you guys doing though? We don't have that stuff. Well, they were right next to a GameStop. And GameStop was using their network for everything.
They are right next to it now.
So they were using everything. So I said, let's try putting a password in there. So GameStop got pissed because they lost all their access.
GameStop have their own one?
Yeah, GameStop was using theirs. So
Right
that was happening everywhere. I mean, the one right over here on Sooner and 59th, next, I guess, is Circle K and the China House. They had a wireless there. People connected to that wireless. So we configured it. We made it a lot better. And I configured the firewall so that the owner could get in remotely. So we did it the correct way. Firewalls are good for keeping people out. And they also can be good for keeping people in. In other words, you don't want people to be able to do certain things. I also took care of all the wireless and all the Buffalo Wild Wings, like the one in Moore and everywhere else. I had to configure those firewalls. And that, those were providing free Wi-Fi to everybody. I mentioned that in this class with you. But I had to, what are you going to allow people to do with free Wi-Fi? What do you think? If I'm configuring Wi-Fi for this restaurant, for Buffalo Wild Wings, what services should we provide?
Buffalo website.
Well, okay, so web browsing maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't really want to filter where they go because that would be forever. So I want web browsing. Anything else?
YouTube. Wait, no.
Well, YouTube will still be over the same web browser. That's port 80. But we also need port 443, which is secure web browsing.
Well, yeah.
Email.
Email.
I had to allow email.
Remote access for.
Well, I didn't want to allow remote access because then that gets too much. And then I also had to allow DNS so they could do name lookup. So it's hard to figure out all this stuff you need. So I had to configure their firewalls. And it's one of those things until you actually do it. I ran my own ISP for years, and I was always making changes to that. When I first started my ISP at my house, I got servers from Cox, and they provided me with a free router. And we're talking free commercial router, and we're talking thousands of dollars, so I can't complain about this. So they come to install it, and I says, okay, so what's the password? And they're like, why do you need the password? I'm like, to configure the ACL and the firewall. Oh, our routers don't support that. I'm like, what? In other words, they did not support any security whatsoever. I'm like, oh, no, I'll be getting my own router immediately. But firewalls can be software-based, can be hardware-based. What do you think is better, a hardware-based firewall or a software-based firewall?
Hardware. Usually hardware.
Yeah, it's always hardware-based because it's made for a specific purpose, okay? So, yeah, hardware is always better. It says both type inspects packets. And we can talk about how they do that. They can either accept or deny. Pretty easy to do there. Hardware tends to be more expensive and difficult to configure, but they do work better. Okay. Software run on another device. Okay. And it says all modern OSs include some sort of firewall. Let's see if ours is turned on here. Oh, we do have it here. Okay, let's see. Where's Windows Firewall? There it is. Windows Firewall. It's off. Is that good or bad?
I mean, it wouldn't be bad.
Okay, so in the room you're saying it would be bad normally. I would like to say it's always bad. Okay, here's why. Okay, so you leave it off because we're inside. We're behind a hardware firewall.
Yeah.
So aren't we protected? But we got all you students up in room 206 in the computer lab hacking away. Now you know this computer right here has no firewall on it. Kind of scary stuff. So it'd be better if it was turned on. Okay. But I know why they do it, but that's not my battle. Okay. Not my battle at all. Okay. Here is an enterprise firewall. I mean, firewalls cost lots of money, but they can do so much. Okay. And there's what Windows firewall looks like when it's turned on. Okay. Here they start talking about, you know, here we have our firewall and our switch. How come they didn't talk about DMZ? Why didn't they talk about DMZ? Seriously? Maybe they will in a minute. Let me check something. I think I'm going to talk about it here in a second, but oh yeah, it's on another slide. Okay, I missed something. But you see here we have the internet, the top left goes through our router to our firewall, then potentially some switches, and into maybe our web server. Now the left side where it says web server and email server, that's normally what's considered a DMZ, demilitarized zone, because we want to allow traffic into there. Because we probably want people to be able to get to our web server. We probably want email to work, but we probably don't want people to get to our database server and stuff on the right-hand side. So we can talk about that setting here in a minute. Okay. Okay. Two different types of filtering. Okay. Stateless and stateful. Okay. Stateless is inspects incoming packets and permits or denies based on a condition. I want to allow web traffic, but I want to block SQL server traffic. I want to block any SQL requests, but I'm going to allow web requests. That's what we're talking about there. So I can allow a port, block a port, allow whatever. Okay. Stateful now says keeps a record of all states, makes decisions based upon those. What you can think about with a stateful is maybe we allow nothing in to our network. But every request that goes out, we keep track of that request and allow the response back in. See what I mean? So stateful, we're keeping track of every connection. If the connection goes out, we want it to be able to get back in. Okay. Now we can allow it to happen. We can drop it. It says prevent the packet from doing anything, and no response is given. So you don't tell anybody it's been denied or deleted. You just drop it. And it can also be rejected. You can tell them, nope, you're not allowed in. Okay. All right, rules. There is a plethora of rules we can set up for this stuff. The book goes into that a little bit more. There's not on the slide, so I'm not going over it. But it says each rule is separate instructions. But I think I can probably show you an example. Let's see if we can find an ACL example. ACL example. Well, these are going to be crazy. Show me the picture. Well, it's just, I wanted the picture. What?
You try to pull it up, but on the new tab.
Well, if it'll. You can see it a little bit. So here we're going to permit whatever. Then we're going to permit something else, and then, man, this is still not really that good a one. So here they're saying permit traffic from anywhere to anywhere. That's ICMP. Okay, what's ICMP, anybody? Internet Control Messaging Protocol. It's ping, it's traceroute, it's stuff like that. Okay, so you can very easily tell it. This one down here, permit from this 10.2 network going to the 10. Network, any TCP traffic from anywhere that's going to port 2000. And this one says permit traffic from the 10.1 network going to the 10.2 network, TCP coming from 2000 going anywhere. So it's not hard to configure an ACL, but you can screw them up very easily. Okay. Rules are stored normally in a text file. You can add them into your system. A lot of the routers nowadays is all GUI-based, so it's easier to configure. It says rule-based systems are static in nature. In other words, you have to edit them to make it do different things. Okay. Application-based is application aware. It says operates at a higher level by identifying the application. So maybe you only want email to happen on this one specific system. So this system would scan packets and only allow email to happen, okay? They also talk about having predefined application signatures, header inspection, payload analysis. When you get into forensics, you can learn about file header. You can do the same thing with applications here, okay? There's a web application firewall. It's a special type of application that looks deeply into packets that carry web traffic to see if they've been manipulated in any way, can block specific sites or specific traffic. Okay, now let's talk about VPNs. VPNs, virtual private networks, is enable authorized users to use an unsecured public network. Okay, I have a VPN service in my house. I think I paid $50 for life or something like that. We also have VPN here at Rose State. I can connect from my home into the Rose State network. So if I connect from my home to Rose State via the virtual private network, when I connect, it's just like I'm inside the Rose State network. Okay? Says all data is encrypted between them. You can have remote access, used to basically user to LAN connection like I use for my house. Can do site to site. I used to take care of a company called Chapel Supply. They had an office here, an office in Dallas. Actually, it was in Fort Worth. I had a site-to-site VPN set up. They were on all the time. The two locations were connected securely. They could communicate back and forth. And there's always on VPNs that just are always on. Okay. Endpoints. It says the endpoint of a tunnel between the devices. Maybe in my house would be an endpoint connecting to Rose State. And you normally connect into a concentrator, which I think they'll talk about the next slide, which is a device here, like you connect it to a Rose State. So. Most organizations have VPNs nowadays. Most do. Okay. So if you're going on a trip and you went through Orlando, Orlando Airport has free Wi-Fi. Would you use it? Well, if you don't have a VPN, you probably shouldn't because you don't know who could be looking at your traffic. Well, if you don't have a VPN available, well, we're probably still going to use it. But I would probably make sure whatever I'm doing is encrypted. I'm going to secure websites with HTTPS or something. At least that way I know at least partially encrypted. But you never totally knew or know what's going on. Okay. Now they talk about full tunnel. They also talk about split tunneling. There's also transport or tunnel mode, which they don't go into here for some reason. Okay, with VPNs, you can encrypt the entire tunnel so you don't know what's going through it, or you can encrypt each packet. So just different ways that can work. Mail gateways, you can send mail, you can receive mail, you can scan mail. Most systems nowadays we're all using Google, Yahoo, or like Rose State's email, and they do a darn good job of getting rid of spam. Not a perfect job, because they're all pretty much signature based like they talk about, and spam's always changing. I tell you, when I ran my forever, how hard do you think it would be to block an email containing the word Viagra? Easy to get. I must have had Viagra spelled 200 ways. And then what they did, they came out with a picture of the word Viagra. So, you know, every time you think you got it solved, they change it. It's like, oh, because, you know, our minds can still read stuff that's spelled wrong, but try writing a filter that blocks the word Viagra. How do you spell it? You know, V-I-A-G-A-R-A, or is it V-A-I, or maybe the V is an uppercase. Oh, it's just terrible. But mail gateways handle all that stuff. They're getting so good. They do so much more. So if outbound mail and email gateway can detect and block the transmission of sensitive data, maybe you don't want someone to be able to send attachments or receive attachments. Okay, I had a problem last week actually. The associate dean was trying to mail out the schedule to all of us. Went to everybody but mine. Mine kept getting rejected. But what it was, years ago, we were limited on the size of the email we could send. But I needed to be able to send something bigger because I had to send something to the NSA or NSF. So they allowed me special permission to send up to a 10 megabyte attachment. Well, now everybody can send bigger attachments, and by default, it's up to 14. But the problem was, since mine was mainly configured to send 10 megabytes, everybody else could send 14 now, and I was limited to 10. So they were trying to send out a 12, it was bigger than 10, so my tickets try to figure out what the heck was going on. So it's hard to manage this kind of stuff. Okay. Intrusion detection systems, IDSs. We have inline, passive. Inline connects to your network and monitors the flow of data. Those are expensive. Who was it? Lockheed Martin, I think, is the network, if I remember right. Lockheed Martin captures all network traffic for 12 months. Which every bit of traffic on the network for an entire year is captured. Why do you think they might want to do that? That is? Well, what if they get an outbreak? Or, Danny Smith, one of our students, did an internship down in Devon. Y'all know where Devon Tower is. Did an intern down there. And when you find a problem there, you submit this like help desk ticket. But you did it, found a problem, submitted it. Then months later, they found out there was a vulnerability on their network. And, big old meeting about it. Oh my God, there's this big vulnerability, all this stuff's happening. And then he raises his hand and says, yeah, I reported that like 6 months earlier. And I know you didn't. Well, it turns out he did. But no one believed him because he was the intern. But sure enough, they did. He had reported it. So I don't know how far Devon keeps their traffic, but can you imagine if there's a vulnerability, say, January 1st, and you find out about it in June? How much stuff could have, happened between January and June? So, yeah, but Lockheed Martin years ago had a loss of something. Now they capture all traffic for an entire year so they can analyze it and look at it. It says passive, it connects to the network, but it receives a copy of the traffic. The real big difference between inline and passive is inline is actually looking at live data. It can stop the traffic, it can delete it, it can do whatever it wants, where passive is just a copy of it. You can't actually stop anything. IDSs can be managed. There's one called Snort, which you play with in one of the classes. They're just amazing what you can do with some of these IDSs nowadays. Okay. Let's see. We have anomaly based. It says compares current detected behavior with baselines. Okay. Years ago when I was in the military, I had to go to a class in Shreveport, Louisiana. Well, I went there, and as soon as I started to remotely connect into the network, it locked me out because my normal hours were day shift, and all of a sudden they send me somewhere where I'm kicking on the network during the day, but all of a sudden I'm trying to log in at night. So the system's like, whoa, this isn't normal. Can't do it. It's normally in the day, so it locked me out. Had to call and get them to do it. But think of it this way: we're looking at normal traffic, and all of a sudden we see something out of the norm. So baseline is what you normally see, the normal configuration. Think if they took a baseline between semesters, and all of a sudden the semester starts. Oh my God, it'd be crazy. Where's all this extra traffic coming from? Okay. Signature based. Now we're looking for maybe, we're looking for specific viruses and stuff like that. We're looking for certain types of traffic. Okay, behavioral based. This is detects abnormal actions. Maybe there's other protocols running in the network that aren't normally there. Okay, and heuristic says uses experience-based techniques, and they can change. Okay, we have a host intrusion or HIDS, host intrusion detection system. They normally run on a host. Okay, it says installed on each system. It can monitor what's happening on the system. Okay. Disadvantages, cannot monitor network traffic that does not reach the host. So if I was running a host intrusion detection system on this machine right here, or if the traffic's not coming to me, I'll never see it. So that's one of the big drawbacks. And the logs are stored locally here. Okay. I also have network intrusion detection. That's the same kind of thing, but works across the network. A lot better, but a lot more expensive. Okay. We have application aware. And we can look at what the applications are, and all of a sudden, if we see something we're not expecting, we can take some actions against it. Okay. All right, intrusion preventive systems, they're similar to the detection system, but these can actually do something against it. Again, there's inline, or we can stop traffic, we can block traffic, we can do stuff about it. Okay. Security and information management systems. Okay. They show you a picture here, I think, on the next slide. there was a popular one years ago called HP OpenView, which when I worked out at Tinker, that's what we ran, and it basically scanned the entire network. And it even drew a little map of the network. And when something went down, it would turn red. When it was up, it was green. You can look for traffic flows. I ran one, I forget the name of it now, darn it. I ran one on my home network for a while when I ran my ISP, and I could look at different levels of traffic between different websites and where they're coming from. And it's just crazy amounts of stuff. Okay. What these systems can give us is aggregation. They can capture all of our traffic together. We can correlate it. You're getting a lot of traffic from Russia today. Okay. Automatic logging and triggering, time synchronization, event duplication, just a lot of stuff in there, expensive to use. Okay. All right. Other types. They have an SSL decryptor. Okay, we all know what SSL is. Well, they have systems that will automatically decrypt the SSL before it passes it on. Okay. Kind of scary. We got SSL to protect our traffic, but if they have systems that automatically decrypt it, kind of scary. Okay. Then we also have SSL and TLS accelerator. So the separate hardware card that inserts into the web server contains one or more of the co-processors to handle or process certificates faster. They do the encryption for us. Okay. A media gateway, especially for things, you know, like YouTube and different types of media out there. Okay. There's the second down, internet content filter. We talked about that a whole bunch. Web security filters. There's companies that build these new stuff every day. Okay. Okay, a design network can provide a secure foundation for resisting attacks. That's true. Okay. But the problem is things are changing every day. There's always a new device out there. We were looking into buying some new computers today. My problem is in about 6 months they're going to be outdated. So kind of scary stuff. At what point do you actually buy them? Okay. Now we're going to get to the demilitarized zones. Maybe we need to break our network into different sections. And there's our picture of a demilitarized zone. Maybe we have our web server and email server on the left, so we want the outside world to be able to get to them. But the stuff on the right, we don't want them. So we can actually have multiple firewalls. Some people can get into through the first firewall. Other stuff can get through the second firewall. So it says a separate network located outside secure network perimeters, because you want people to get to them, just not to the rest. Okay, it's a DMZ. NAT, we're all using NAT every day. You just don't realize it. Now, NAT stands for Network Address Translation. So here at Rose State, if I was to bring up a wonderful website, we're going to call it IP Chicken. Okay, so if you were to connect from any computer, with the exception of the Cyber Lab, if you were going to connect to IP Chicken from any computer on Rose State, any building, you're all going out as the same IP address. So the outside world, we all look like we are 164.58.104.12. Even from your house, all the devices on your home. So if you go to your house and bring up your cell phone, your laptop, whatever, everything on your network is all going to go out as one address. What's happening is it's all going out as one, and there's a table built, a network address translation, or a NAT table that handles that for us. It says it allows private IP address to be used on public internet, replaces the private address with a public address. So to the outside world, we all have the same public address. So it goes out, comes back to Rose State, and then the gateway forwards it back to me. Advantages, masks the IP address. So people looking, they just see one computer on the campus instead of 4,000. Okay, same at your house. Try that at your home. Go to IP Chicken at home, you'll see. Okay, here's what it does. Takes your original address and replaces it with an alias. Okay. All right, they're talking about intranet, extranet, guest networks. Anyone got a guest network at their house? Someone should. Anybody? No? My router supports a guest network. So if I turn that on, y'all could get on it, but again, you're limited from the rest of the stuff on my network. So a separate open network that anyone can access without prior authorization, very easy to turn on and off. All right, we can also physically segment our networks. You can actually, maybe the wireless is separated from the wired. You can also put an air gap between things. This is in the absence of any type of connection between the two networks. All right, it says networks being segmented with switches to divide them. We kind of already talked about that. a VLAN, a virtual LAN. Here at Rose State, the cyber lab is connected to the same network, but it's connected through a VLAN. So the cyber lab computers are on a separate virtual network than everybody else on campus. It's just a way to keep them separate. Okay? You can isolate sensitive data or isolate computers, across. Each packet is, like it says on the bottom, there's tags, so they know where the packet goes. We also have a video VLAN on campus because we have video streaming services on campus. It's just a way of segmenting out our traffic. Okay. Says 2 techniques to use help secure network access control and data loss. Let's talk about those 2. Network access control. This is, I put a red note in here. When I first went to TU, Tulsa University, years ago, connected my computer into the network, and it basically said I needed some updates. What their system did was it scanned my computer, and it would not let me do anything until I did these updates. And kind of a cool system. You can tell it to check for updates, check for antivirus, whatever. And it says any device that does not meet the specific criteria could be quarantined. The way TUs work is, say you need updates. You plug in, it tells you need updates. It lets you get the updates. Then it checks you again an hour later. Then if it, I think it goes through that two different times. And at that point, if you're still not taken care of, what it does at that point, it sends an automatic help desk ticket. Then someone comes to your dorm or apartment that I was staying in and manually configures it for me. So kind of a cool setup. And if we don't do that here, we should. Okay. It says the goal is to prevent computers and with suboptimal security from potentially infecting other computers on the network. Maybe you're new at the dorm over here and you don't have the virus scanner installed. So you connect into the network, it detects you do not have a virus scanner. So what does it do? It gives you a link to download one. Then you download it and you can go from there. So kind of a cool system. They use agents to gather information. They can be something there all the time. It can be checked every so often. So it is a really cool system. Okay, we're not going to worry about the picture here, but you can use it to auto, configure your clients to do certain things. Data loss prevention. Maybe we have some. Prime example of this is Tinker. Tinker, you're not allowed to use USBs. Did y'all know that? Can't use any USBs in Tinker. Yep. Now my wife worked out there, and she had a USB. But she worked on computers, so her specific serial number from her USB was registered in the system. So when she plugged hers in, it was legit, so she was able to use it. But if you plug in an unauthorized USB, you're in big trouble. It'll lock it down and all kinds of. Because if you think about it, why wouldn't I just turn off all USB ports?
Yeah. Well.
Then how are you going to use your keyboard? How are you going to use your mouse? I mean, doesn't have the stuff. Years ago, our keyboard and our mouse plugged in differently, so I could see he's doing that. But nowadays, everything's USB. So you can't really turn the ports off. But yeah, so it's crazy stuff that they do. But you can do it where maybe you're not allowed to save attachments or not allowed to do whatever. It says monitoring email through the gateway. The government just does a lot of this stuff. Okay, content inspection to see exactly what the traffic is. Okay. And it says content inspection looks for who is requesting the data, what permissions do they have, what data is being stored, when is it being requested, where is it going, all that kinds of stuff. Okay. All right. When a policy violation happens, it can be reported back. You can block the data. You can quarantine the data. You can get a response to it. So just all kinds of stuff. Okay. That's pretty much all of Chapter 6. So I'm going to stop this recording here.